One of the things that many Irish people find interesting is the amount of towns and places in the USA that have the same names as we have here in Ireland, especially in Pennsylvania. Well, of course, there are names of many places from all over Ireland and Pennsylvania, such as Dublin or Limerick. There appears to be a predominance of Ulster names. So we find places like Derry, Antrim, Coleraine, or Lisburn, and of course Donegal. This is primarily the result of migration to what were then called the colonies by Ulster Scots migrants in the 17th and 18th centuries. From a Donegal point of view, we find in Lancaster County, for example, the townships of Raphoe, Donegal and East Donegal, with the township of Mountjoy named after one of the ships that relieved the siege of Derry in 1689. In York County we find Castlefin and Fawn, while in Juniata County there is a Lack township, possibly named after the area of Leck in Letterkenny. And of course in Franklin County we find the township of Letterkenny itself. Several people from Donegal made lasting impressions in this new world, such as the 15th President of the United States, James Buchanan, whose father was born in Ramelton, County Donegal, in 1781. Redmond Cunningham emigrated from Letterkenny to Philadelphia and became a hugely successful shipping merchant before retiring to Donegal. He was the eldest son of Captain David Cunningham of Letterkenny and emigrated to Philadelphia in 1740, where he established himself as a successful shipping merchant in partnership with John Maxwell Nesbitt. Having secured his fortune, he returned to Ireland in 1766, where he died. He is buried in Conmall Parish Church in Letterkenny. While we will never know for sure the exact number, the most recent estimate is that somewhere between 100,000 and 250,000 people left Ireland for North America between the years 1700 and 1775. Many of these migrants gradually moved west across the Delaware River, settling in different areas of land and naming their new towns after places from their homeland. The act of naming became an important part of the overall process of adaptation into these new territories, making them feel comfortable in new surroundings and creating a sense of familiarity. As early as 1710, settlements of people from Ulster began in western Chester County, with the Londonderry Township surviving as one of the oldest Irish place names in Pennsylvania today. While there were many new settlers arriving from Europe at this time, by the 1720s the Scotch-Irish comprised the vast majority of the European population in this frontier region, and the eastern shores of the Susquehanna had become a so-called Irish haven. The Donegal Springs Presbyterian Church in Mountjoy Township was created in 1720, while by 1741 a new township was named for the town, barony, parish and diocese of Raphoe in Ireland. Ulster migrants began crossing the Susquehanna in the 1720s to stake out claims, legally and otherwise. In 1730, four brothers named Chambers, who had emigrated from Ireland in the 1720s, became among the very first to move beyond the river frontier. Benjamin Chambers, a millwright, became the founder of Chambersburg, the seat of Franklin County today. And it is in Franklin County that we find the township of Letterkenny, the name of which came from the home place of Robert Boyd. Robert was the son of John Boyd, originally from Ayrshire in Scotland, who had moved to the new plantation town of Letterkenny in the 1660s. The Boyd family continued to have a big connection to the town of Letterkenny from the 1660s right up until 1930. Claiming a family connection to the chief planter of the town, Lady Joanna Marbury of Letterkenny Castle, Scottish brothers John, William and Robert Boyd arrived in the town to claim a piece of the family lands. John Boyd built the family mansion in the town by 1672, approximately in the area where the former Charles Kelly hardware shop stands on the main street today. Following the death of his first wife, John Boyd was remarried to Helena Ewing in 1673, and he was granted the lease of the manor, tolls and customs of Letterkenny. He died in 1710, aged 78, with his grave still visible in the graveyard of Conmall Parish Church in Letterkenny today. He was succeeded by his eldest son, also called John, who obtained the grant of the Letterkenny mills and lands in 1709 and a confirmation of the manor, tolls and customs of Letterkenny in 1711. His brother Robert, the third son of John Boyd, emigrated to the colonies following the death of his father and established the township of Letterkenny in Franklin County, Pennsylvania. The Boyd family continued to dominate the landscape of the town of Letterkenny for another 2 centuries, with the building of their family mansion in Ballymacool around 1783. This remained the seat of the family right up until 1938, when the Ballymacul estate was sold and the era of the Boyds of Ballymacul in Letterkenny was no more. All that is left today are the ruins of the former mansion. Following his immigration to Pennsylvania, Robert Boyd settled in the Cumberland Valley around 1737, north of Chambersburg. The Rocky Spring Presbyterian Church served as the centre of this new settlement. According to William Henry Eagle, Robert Boyd was a gentleman of education and influence on the far frontiers. And during the French and Indian War, he was commissioned a captain in the 3rd Battalion of the Provincial Forces, participating in the Forbes expedition. He died about 1760, leaving 8 children. 2 years after his death, Letterkenny was officially established as a township after almost 30 years of settlement there. The early settlers of Letterkenny Township were hard hit during the French and Indian War, with those that were not victims of the massacres and destruction of their cabins fleeing to more settled areas, abandoning their new settlement. As a result, today the township of Letterkenny is mostly rural, holding small communities encompassing a 70 square mile area, with a population of around 2,500 people. It is perhaps most famous for its army depot, which was founded in 1941, 11 days after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Letterkenny Army Depot provides ammunition, trucks, parts and other supplies for the US Army. Interestingly, just like in Ireland, north of Letterkenny Township is Fannet, named after Fanad in Ireland. It is certainly possible that someone from Fanad named this area after their place of birth, but it's more likely that it was named after Fannet Head, being many migrants' last sight of Ireland as they departed up Lough Swilly from Letterkenny or Ramelton on their way to the New World. And so we have, in Letterkenny and Donegal today, the graves of the father and brother of the man who helped to establish the township of Letterkenny in Franklin County, Pennsylvania in the 1730s. Whilst difficult to read the inscription fully today, thankfully a family member recorded the inscription in the 1970s on a visit to the town, thus confirming the remains of the first John Boyd of Letterkenny resting here. And so with these interesting connections between Pennsylvania and Donegal seemingly forgotten about over time, and particularly Letterkenny, it was in the 1960s that popular local councillor Patsy O'Donnell re-established a connection with Letterkenny Township in Pennsylvania, sending and receiving messages of goodwill every St Patrick's Day, with visits of dignitaries in both directions taking place over the years. However, it was with Elizabethtown in Lancaster County that a formal partnership was established in the early 2000s. The history of Elizabethtown tells us that the land was purchased by Barnabas and Elizabeth Hughes from County Donegal, with Barnabas laying out a town and naming it in honour of his wife. The town even had a central square and diamond pattern similar to many plantation towns in their native Ireland, such as Letterkenny, Raphoe and Donegal Town today. Elizabethtown was incorporated as a borough in 1827, and in preparation for the 175th anniversary of this incorporation, contact was established with the town of Letterkenny in Ireland. And it was soon realised that the two communities shared much in common. Similar in size, both communities are college towns, with each having a candy company. Well, at the time anyway. A sister city memorandum of understanding was signed in November 2002 by government officials of Elizabethtown and Letterkenny at a gala event celebrating Elizabethtown's 175th anniversary. Sadly, following the abolition of Letterkenny Town Council in 2014, this joint agreement between the two towns was gradually forgotten about. However, thanks to the great efforts of many people at Discover Elizabethtown, the Letterkenny Cathedral Quarter, and both towns' chambers of commerce, efforts to restore this relationship are now taking place, and that is to be warmly welcomed. So we see that Pennsylvania and County Donegal share a strong historical connection, with many towns and areas in the state established by immigrants who departed for the colonies in the 17th and 18th centuries.